Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey. And today, we're getting ready for our rankings episodes, which we're going to start next week. So we thought before we got into that, we'd do a little trending up, trending down episode. Basically, pick three players we are kind of going up our ranks, three players that are going down our ranks. Because we made our ranks now, it's probably about 2 months ago right now. I think it was sometime in May where we kind of finalized them. So we've definitely changed our opinions talking about this every week on some players. Actually, I'll let you know right away. There's actually a player on my list that you talked me into. So
I feel good now.
That's the good thing about talking about fantasy football all the time. You get these players in your mind, okay, maybe you know what? Maybe he will be something. So there's a couple of those. Before we get into that, make sure you check us out on Twitter at the FF Prophet. We're on Instagram at Fantasy Football Prophet. The website's fantasyfootballprophet.com. You always get your questions into us, fantasyfootballprophet@gmail.com. We've been getting some more and more questions here as the season is getting underway. And that's how I'm going to start the episode, Jeff. It's my segment, the Craig's Random segment. Today's turned into the mailbag, which I think as we get going, that's pretty much what the beginning of the show is going to be. We're getting a lot of questions here from people. So I actually have two different questions that came through. I kind of want to go over and see your thoughts and, what we can help these guys with. First question comes from Steven in Delaware. He asks us, do you guys use a different strategy for live drafts versus online drafts? He says he finds that online drafts tend to follow whatever rankings the platform uses and can be more predictable. He said, do you see that? Feel the same? Jeff, have you've done live auction drafts? Have you ever done a live snake draft yet?
I've never done a live snake.
I have done both, so I can see that. But what is your thoughts on that? What is the difference in a live draft? Do you think it changes things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it changes quite a bit. I would have to agree with Steve 100%. When you're doing it online, there's less interaction. People tip you off a little less as well. There's a lot more talking when you go live. You're with your buddies usually, blah, blah, blah. But you start recognizing different things, right? Yep. You're going after the same player all of a sudden. You're making eye contact. You're doing that kind of stuff. So I think it adds a personal element to it. So I think it's easier for people to get thrown. And that would be the other thing. You wouldn't think that a fantasy football draft could really get people thrown, nervous and everything like that, but it really does. And when you're counting down, and if you're at the comfort of your own home, you're behind your computer, you're picking it, you usually have everything spread out. You have to be a little more secretive when you're around other people, so it kind of messes with how you approach it even.
Yeah, and I've done both live auction and live snake drafts. I feel like in a live auction, the bidding wars can get a little more intense. They actually go a little bit higher. If you're actually in the room with somebody, it's the other people might egg it on. I've seen that happen where it's not just the two people going at it. The other people might egg them on a little bit and it gets a little higher.
100%.
If you're not there for that, it's not as easy to get egged on by that. Same thing with a snake draft. I've seen runs happen quicker, like a quarterback run or a running back. Like those runs are just exaggerated when everyone's in the same room and everyone's actually talking about, hey, all these players are going off the board.
Yeah.
So, and those live drafts can change things. You can have people that might get a little too drunk and draft 4 defenses.
We've definitely seen that. I was going to say
a few years back, but I remember that.
It's so funny though because it's very true how people the mob mentality happens, right? And I think probably it's a little more of a pure sport, if you will. I mean, it's fantasy sports, but a little more pure if you do it with the people in the room. It's kind of like online poker, if you will. How it's a way different game when you're doing it against people in the same room compared to if you're doing it online. I also love it when someone is going, especially in auction, when someone is going for undervalue and people already have quarterbacks, they already have certain things set up, and you're trying to go with the same strategy, and all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers is thrown out there and he's only going for 20.
Yep.
People that they don't want other people in their conference, other people that they know, rivalries, to get that player for cheap. So all of a sudden people are yelling, you idiot, keep going. Different things like that, pretty much pointing out, this is too good of a deal. And it kind of gets out of control real quick. Yep. So I love it. I think doing it live is much, much better. And I think it's tougher, too.
Yep. It definitely have to be prepared for those. So that's, I think it's a lot more fun. So we have one coming up here, so it'll be interesting.
We'll be in Pittsburgh this year.
Yeah, well, it's coming up quick. It's almost just about a month away, so get ready for that. One more question comes to us on YouTube, actually, from Charles. He's basically asking, can you take Lynch and Cooper on the same team? He says he really likes those two, and currently ADP says you can own them both in drafts, and basically asked if it's a good idea. Also, he said, thanks for reminding me of Surge Soda, which, if you're on YouTube and watching the videos, yes, I was drinking a Surge in last week's episode, so haven't seen that stuff in forever. So, want to drink it.
That and Zima making their comeback.
Yeah. So did Charles notice that? I didn't know if anybody would. But okay, that comes down to the question. It's not even going to be necessarily about Lynch and Cooper to me, which I think you can. I don't think you want Lynch to be your number one running back.
I was going to say, first of all, 100%.
Yeah.
If you both of them on your team would be a blessing. That's awesome.
This talk about this situation in general. Do you even really consider it when they're from the same team too much? Like running back, wide receiver? Honestly, it doesn't cross my mind a lot. No. It's just players. I want good players.
Maybe two wide receivers.
That's where I start to think about
two of the same position.
Right? Running back and wide receiver, I'm not too worried about it.
Especially on a team that's well balanced, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then especially with like Lynch and Cooper. Cooper, if he's your number one receiver, I'm okay with that. If it's I think he can be a number one receiver. I don't want Lynch as your number one. If those are your two number ones, I'm a little worried because I'm more worried about Lynch. I'd like to be your number two.
And I think the way that you would end up with both of those guys, if you would take a running back in the first round, then you'd probably have to take Cooper. Maybe he slips to the third.
Yeah, I can definitely
depending on where. Just assuming you're somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. So pretty much you're taking Cooper and Lynch anywhere from the second to the fifth. Like you're in there. You don't take Cooper with the first round pick. Obviously, I wouldn't.
I could definitely see something where you have a top end of the first round pick, get a top running back, turn around, get Cooper at the end of the second, maybe. And then Lynch at the beginning of the third. Either one of those
and you're
ways,
probably going to have to do it more than fifth. That's probably not going to happen. That's probably true. It's probably between the second and the fourth.
But I have no problem with those two on your team if you can get it right. Just I don't want Lynch. It's nothing to do with having Cooper in your team, I just don't want Lynch as my number one running back.
It's just about Does it work out where you're at? And if it's an auction draft, which obviously we prefer, you can definitely get both of them. Yep. And I think that right now, I think they probably will both be a pretty decent value because I think Cooper might go for a little more than I'm willing to, but that's because of his upside. I think Lynch is actually going to be a value because a lot of people are still down on him. So,
and it's one of those I'm not sure what to think about. So
I'm not either, but
I'm not there yet. I'm just kind of.
I still like him as a RB2.
Yep. All right, I think it's time to get into the episode here. Get into our list, trending up and trending down. I think we're going to start with the trending up players. We got 3 of them each. Who is your first one, Jeff? Who is trending up for you? Who you liking a little bit more?
All right, this is a weird one. He just wasn't even on my radar necessarily, and then I dug a little too deep one day, and all of a sudden I found a reason to kind of like him. But it's a quarterback, and his name is Brian Hoyer.
Okay.
And this is weird, right? He's not going to jump into my top 10. Let's not, I don't need.
But you're thinking about him now.
I don't need the hate, but yes, he's on my radar, and this is why. You're talking about. And really it came about because we were doing the Scott Fish Bowl, right?
Yeah, and we had to think about every single player
in the
league.
Single player. So we were looking at back-end quarterbacks, and, a lot of these guys you don't think about in regular situations, standard leagues. But Hoyer was always kind of quietly good. His main concern is he gets injured, right? Yep. So it was very interesting because I looked at it, and I'm like, okay, so he started for Cleveland, started 14 games. He didn't have that great of a year. It was 12 TDs, 13 interceptions with 3,300 yards. So not the worst of all time, but definitely not anything fantasy relevant.
Yep.
But it was also Cleveland. So from Cleveland, he goes to Houston, and he plays 11 games, 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Okay, all of a sudden we're kind of working with something. You miss 5 games, and you're still decent. And then he goes to Chicago. He only gets to play in 6 games, 4 of them where he starts, right?
Yep.
And he ended up with 1,400 yards and 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. But this is where I love it. So basically, he's never had the ability to play a full season yet because he's never looked at as a starting quarterback. Now he goes to San Francisco. Not the greatest situation of all time, but not dire like he was in Cleveland, right?
Yep.
You're definitely better situation. So I went a little too far in the statistics, but if you extrapolate the 4 games he actually started in Chicago, so after Cutler got hurt, he came in for half a game. And when he got hurt in the first half. So I throw those out, those stats, throw them out. If you do that and you take 4 games, and obviously he's going to throw more interceptions, he's going to have a few things, but stay with me. 4 games, he would have ended up with, in those 4 games, he had 1,318 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Jeez.
So if you extrapolate that out for completions, attempts, he would have thrown 68% of his passes were complete.
That's a pretty good number.
Yeah, so he's accurate. Maybe he's not that great of a deep threat. But if you go out a full season, he would have had 5,272 yards, 24 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And if you take that into account, he would have actually ended up with points that would have totaled the 5th best quarterback in the league.
It's crazy.
I know that is a jump. It's a reach, right? And I'm not saying he's going to be the 5th best by any means. But what I'm saying here is he definitely should jump up into maybe that idea of top 15 quarterback, where he definitely was not.
What is he now, like 25?
Oh, yeah.
He's like way down there?
Exactly. He's near the bottom of starters. So he definitely should take a jump up. And yes, injury concern is a real thing.
Well, yeah, with him. And we were in this Scott Fishbowl thing. Hoyer was a good option for us later on. We were really considering it. It didn't work out, but he was somebody we were thinking about. And he was the quarterback for the majority of the season. DeAndre Hopkins, a great year he had in 2015. It was, he started, I think, 9 games that year. Probably played a little bit more. He was the quarterback who look what Hopkins did last year without Hoyer anymore. So
Yep. And Chicago wasn't the greatest team either. And I think for San Francisco, to have a guy that's accurate, more of the short tosses. He's a veteran now because he's been in the league for how many years?
Yep.
I think he can come in, and I think he could be a sneaky fantasy option, especially for bye-week fillers.
Especially for 2 quarterback leagues, he's definitely an option.
So he can come into play for you in some asset of fantasy.
Yep.
I'm not saying he's in the top 10, far from it.
No, but I think it is true. He needs to be more on people's radar than maybe he is.
Yes.
Because think about it. San Francisco's probably going to be down.
Yeah, he's going to have to throw
He's going to have to throw the ball probably a lot.
Yeah.
And they don't really have anybody. They don't have anybody behind him. They don't have this young guy they want to come out and play his plays.
If it's not him, it's Matt Barkley.
They just switched over Chicago quarterbacks, basically.
I'm saying Hoyer showed enough where he's going to get a shot in Francisco because they're rebuilding a lot of different stuff. They don't want to touch quarterback yet. And it's going to be his show to run. So if he doesn't get hurt, I think he could be a sneaky play at quarterback, and that is why he's moving up for me.
I kind of like that. It's interesting.
Long-winded, but...
Well, I'm going to stick with the quarterback theme here, my first guy. I'm going to stick with the Michigan State quarterback theme. It's going to be Kirk Cousins.
Is that the one I talked you into?
It is.
Finally.
It is. After that, Cousins is moving up in my mind. Before he was like 11, 12, maybe even further in my ranks. He's definitely top 10 now. He might even be, I'm trying to think where I was kind of moving him in the ranks. I think he was passing Roethlisberger and Rivers for me now. He's up there, and it's just
good.
He puts up numbers in fantasy football.
Yeah.
He has Pryor to throw to and Crowder, and I still think Doxson's going to do something. If Reed's healthy, that's a good offense. Even Vernon Davis still there at tight end?
He is. He's the backup.
I just think it's a good situation for fantasy. I don't necessarily think Kirk Cousins is an amazing NFL quarterback, but I don't think he's as bad as I once thought either. I think he's solid. He's a solid NFL quarterback who has a lot of people to throw to. In a running game that I'm kind of, we don't know about yet. They might not be able to run the ball very well, and they're going to have to throw the ball with Cousins. And so he's moved up my list. I've been trying to figure out these ranks, and every time I'm like, I have to have him higher. And I feel really comfortable in any league I get him in. I've been noticing that. I kind of realized, I kind of think I want Cousins over Rivers. I want Cousins over Roethlisberger. I had those guys ranked ahead of him before, but no, I think I want Cousins.
And I think to your point, obviously I was already very, very high on him, but the people that you worry about regressing usually has to do with the scrambling. And just many, many times it does. Yep. Cam Newton, Russell Wilson.
Yep.
He doesn't run. His numbers are his numbers. I think he's very, very safe to be a top 10 quarterback, and obviously I think he has a very good shot at even being a top 5 guy this year.
Well, he doesn't run, but he still runs for touchdowns. He had 9 touchdowns total the last 2 years rushing the ball, 5, 2015, 4 last year. Doesn't have any yards behind him at all. He had 48 yards and then 95 yards, but he actually gets touchdowns.
Yes, true.
Which is a weird thing.
Yes, but last year he also threw for a very strange under ratio of touchdowns for the amount of time.
4,900 yards.
So I think even if that would offset each other, and then even with those numbers last year, he would still end up being, if Brady played a whole season, people that we think are going to jump up, he would have still easily been 7th.
Yep. And I'm more comfortable with him than a lot of those guys, so he's moved up my ranks, and we'll actually get to that next week, Tuesday.
New rankings.
We're going to do our, I think, top 15 quarterbacks. He's obviously in there for both of us, so we'll see where we end up. Or actually, what I think we're going to do is we'll do consensus ranks, combined our ranks, and see where these people end up. Really give people a good idea. I think he's going to be a lot higher than expected.
I think he should be.
So he will be up there.
I like that one.
All right, who's your next?
My next one, and it's funny, you actually talked me into this guy, and this was just recent, but Danny Woodhead.
Oh yeah, players we haven't talked about.
Yep. So Danny Woodhead, obviously that backfield, Terrence West never really got it done. Dixon is suspended or hurt for the first few games. Danny Woodhead comes in here, and he's an older back. He's a smaller back. But once you talk it out, it just makes so much sense that on an offense that throws this much, that has this much issue finding a feature back, that he is going to, if nothing else, steal a ton of work.
Yeah.
And once again, in PPR leagues, even more so.
Yep. But
Danny Woodhead is, not even slowly, he has made a pretty significant jump up my rankings because I think he's one of these guys that I'm starting to consider him the feature back, if you will, in Baltimore. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't get the bulk of the opportunities out there.
It's not going to be the carries, but it's going to be the opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm including third down passing attempts on there.
And the nice thing about him is he's still way down in the ranks, and he's going to have potential there. I'm not sold on West, and I'm not sold on Dixon. West can be fine for a fill-in, but he's had chances.
Yeah. And those guys will only cannibalize each other. They're not going to cut into Woodhead. So Woodhead can only gain from here on out.
Yep. And he's going to be. I mean, he was really good in the red zone too 2 seasons ago, which is a weird thing. Like, just they would look for him. San Diego did. I don't see why Baltimore doesn't do that too.
And it's not like and also when you look back, because you kind of forget, right? He's a sneaky player, so you forget how good he was. Yep. But in positional ranks, so for running backs, in 2012 he was 24th overall. Then 2013 he was 2013 he was 19th. Then he got hurt, and then 2015 he was 11th. Yep. And then he got hurt again. So, I mean, if he stays healthy, he's productive anyway, and he's in a great situation.
Yeah, I like that because you're not going to spend anything on him. He's going to be like your 5th running back.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. And he can actually, you put him in there, I think he's more of a safe option. He's going to get catches. He's going to get you something. Mm-hmm. He's going to help you out. All right, I'm going to continue that theme as well of pass-catching running backs who are on our players we haven't talked about list from last week. It's Ty Montgomery.
Okay,
another one. And we brought him up last week because we hadn't talked about him, and the more I thought about it is, why isn't he up here? So he's jumped my ranks quite a bit. Actually, probably more to where he is consensus-wise, because he was about, 20th, I think we figured out last week, in Fantasy Pros consensus, or around there. And I had him down like 29th or 30th, and I've jumped him up just about to 20th now. And it's more of, I don't think, they drafted the Packers drafted all those rookies, those running backs. But they didn't draft until at least the 4th round. There's 4th, 5th round guys. If they were really worried about Montgomery, they wouldn't have let Christian Michael go. They wouldn't have let Starks go. They would have drafted a running back in the 2nd round. They didn't do any of those things. They are going to stick with Montgomery because I think they like just it. The dimension it adds to that offense when you have a pass catcher out of the backfield like that, who actually can run the ball a little bit, but he is a receiver. It's just something that made that offense just dynamic. How good was that offense with Rodgers at the end of the year? Rodgers' numbers were great, and it started after Montgomery became the back.
Yeah.
They weren't as he was struggling. Remember, it was struggling early on.
I think they want to give the appearance of a balanced offense,
Yep.
but in reality, every time they can, they want to give Aaron Rodgers the ball. So this gives them the better opportunity.
The only worry I have in Montgomery is I don't think he's going to get any goal line carries. It's all going to be Ripkowski.
Yeah,
that's the worry I have. If I thought he was going to get those carries, it'd be a little different. But it's either going to be Ripkowski or I can just picture it in my head a couple of these. Of Rodgers throwing the ball down there to Nelson or Adams or like the little plays they run down there to get a touchdown from the 2-yard line. They have plenty.
I was
of
going to say that's my fear with him is he might get very few touchdowns.
He'll get touchdowns. He'll get receiving touchdowns in the red zone. It's not going to be the rushing.
He could, but Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams just really have a stranglehold on that right now.
Yeah, that's going to be my worry with him. Is actually he did not have a receiving touchdown last year.
Yeah.
So, and he only had 3 rushing. That's where
my fear comes in.
He's going to have plenty of work. He's going to be very good. It's just the touchdowns. Can he get more touchdowns? Mm-hmm. If he had more touchdowns, he would be way up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the only reason I'm down there, but I'm thinking about him a lot more as like my third running back.
And to be fair as well, to that point, if one injury occurs, mostly Jordy Nelson. If Jordy Nelson gets hurt, it's just that amount of touchdowns has to go somewhere.
Yep.
So between him, Cobb, and Devontae Adams, I don't think can really go up from there. So he could one injury and he could be a real steal.
All right, who's your final player on your trending up list?
I didn't mean it to be this way, but it's actually on the Ravens again, and that's Maclin.
Yeah.
So Maclin gets traded, and everyone was down on him, including me. He was at KC. He looked like Kelsey is the number 1 wide receiver as a tight end.
Yep.
Tyreek Hill was going to cut into him, and he plays with a quarterback that is,
game manager.
Exactly.
Basically.
So now he gets traded, goes to the Ravens, and this team throws a lot, and they don't have anyone to necessarily throw it to. And that's why I liked him for Woodhead as well.
They lost over 200 targets from last year, so.
Yeah, and from when he was his final year in Philly, he had 1,300 yards with 10 touchdowns, and then he goes to KC, and he has about the same amount of receptions, 87 now. So he almost gets 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. Then he gets hurt, and everyone just loses faith in him. So he goes to a better passing offense, and, I mean, he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver. I don't see why 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns wouldn't be what you would expect out of him. And I had him 50s, lower than that. So he's got to move up for me, and I think he should move up for the majority of other people because I know everyone ranked him
He's
low.
moved up for me quite a bit, too. I just think he's going to be just a good option. That's what I like, those kind of players to round up my roster, and I think he's going to be very solid on bye weeks. You might not even have to have him as a starter. Probably won't.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to move up enough. So
especially if you're in a 2-receiver league, he's definitely not. In a 3, you can use him. He should be solid. Yeah, I don't necessarily think Flacco's great, but he's going to throw the ball around. He's good enough to get numbers for people. So, and we don't know if Perriman's going to be anything yet at all. And Mike Wallace is just kind of Mike Wallace.
Yeah, he's a one-trick pony.
And who are they
now.
throwing the ball at tight end? I have no idea. That's why it's going to be Woodhead and Maclin.
Exactly.
Right?
So
has to be those two.
They're just soaking up those, and it blows my mind every time I see how much they throw the ball because it doesn't feel that way. But they do. Someone needs to catch it. Maclin is way more talented than people are giving him credit for anymore for some reason. And Woodhead and Maclin both move up because of that.
All right. Well, you would think we planned this list the way these transitions work. My final player is the guy who's going to benefit from Maclin being out of Kansas City, and that's Tyreek Hill. So it worked out. I like this. Tyreek Hill. I've gone up and down on Tyreek Hill, as you know. I feel like I kind of discovered Tyreek Hill last year. No one was listening to the podcast because we just started. So it was about week 7 last year. I think we started our podcast. I was on Tyreek Hill like every week in our waiver section. Every week I had Tyreek Hill up there and kept waiting. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
And he blew up.
And he finally did.
Every single one of our leagues.
And then I feel like it got too much for a bit there. That was when Maclin was still there. It was just, it got like, okay.
Well, I wish I knew what he was actually. Let me go ahead. Keep going.
It got to the point where I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of worried about how much his rank was increasing. But now I think it's kind of leveled out. And with Maclin gone now, obviously they really do believe in Tyreek Hill because he's not going to necessarily play the Maclin role. I think that's more going to be like Chris Conley's going to come in and take that, and obviously Kelsey's going to get a lot of the catches. But Tyreek Hill is such a dynamic player. He does so much. The more I thought about this is he's going to get the ball some way, and they're going to get the ball in his hands. Yeah, he might have a week where he's down, but he's going to be. I think that's going to be really rare. He is such a good player that it's going to work somehow.
With Macklin at some point, and I know that he was at least ranked 23rd. That's way too high.
With Macklin there, without Macklin, I'm fine with that. And actually, I think I ranked.
Yeah, well, he actually fell farther down, which
that's
more
about
like, right.
That's kind of maybe my mindset on this whole thing. The Hill thing is it's leveled out on him. People aren't, so it's not crazy hype. He's not getting this overhype, which kind of makes me. I guess I go back up on him. I switch off whatever the general consensus is saying at the time.
Yeah, it's more about the ADP with him.
Yeah, it is. As a third receiver, I think that's a good third receiver. He's a really boomer bust guy, but that's a pretty good potential. He can win you weeks as a third receiver. So he's kind of been going up my list. So I'm kind of looking at Hill again, and he's one of those I don't know what to expect in drafts with people. Someone's going to fall in love with him yet, I think. And that's why I probably won't end up with him on any of my teams. But I'm back on the Tyreek Hill bandwagon. He's my original player, so I'm back with him. All right, time to move over to trending down. Who have you soured on since we did our ranks and going over all this stuff?
As the picture becomes clear, Rob Kelly. So the Washington backfield is a little more muddy, but it's definitely looking looks to everyone, I'm sure, that at least it's going to be a timeshare. So Rob Kelly, obviously less carries. P. Ryan does anything, I think he could easily overtake him. Really Kelly was propped up on the fact that you thought that, or at least my initial rankings, he was going to get the bulk of the share because they obviously didn't have P. Ryan yet, and the other backs were in the doghouse. So that's why, plain and simple. Kelly has more competition. He's going to get less carries. It's going to be a time
more of like maybe he will do something, but the situation is so you don't know about it. It's hard to rank him.
It's hard to say, but if I had to put my money on someone, I'd probably lean towards P. Ryan even.
Should have listened to our draft review episode, Jeff. I told you that back then, that if some running back was to break out from the deeper list, it's going to be P. Ryan.
I know.
Should have now, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm torn on that. That's one of the situations I need to see preseason.
Yeah.
I need to see that. I need to see the Bengals. I need to see those with those rookies that are supposedly supposed to come in and take over. And I need to see the Chiefs too. Like, where
everyone.
Like those three for sure with Mixon and with P. Ryan, with Hunt. I need to see those three situations to see actually what these players are being used. Until then, I just have to stay away.
Yeah.
And they go down my list too. So yeah, I agree with that one. My first player is a running back as well. It's LeGarrette Blount. I had him ranked a little higher early on based off his, 18 touchdowns with New England last year. I think that's what it was. He's not going to get 18 touchdowns for Philadelphia. He's not a very good running back. I don't think he's very good anymore. He's no good. I see you kind of, no, he's no good. He's no good. He's no good. I don't think he's good. I really don't.
I'm not going to defend him, but
even yards per carry is one thing. It's not a great stat because especially with Blount getting all these 1 yard touchdowns, it's only 3.9. He doesn't do much. He doesn't make people miss. He might run over people. I think when you're like a 31-year-old running back, that gets a little harder to do. Those hits hurt a little bit more. He's not playing in New England anymore. He's not on this winning team. I just don't know. I have a bad feeling about it.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to go bad.
I agree. I don't think his touchdowns will be anywhere near that. But
they never have. Last year was just crazy. He's never even. He only had one other 1,000-yard season in his career, and that was his rookie year, but he barely hit that when he was back with Tampa. Just now he's 31. Going to be 31 this season? No, and there's a lot of backs there, Philly, that could they might do other things with him. Sproles is still there, Pumphrey, Smallwood, who knows? I'm way down on it. Like he's dropped 30 something in my ranks now. Just staying away. I don't want him.
Yeah,
maybe if he goes down there and it's like my fourth, I'll take it. But.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's useful to have on your bench, but I don't know how far he fell necessarily. But yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
I'm just way down on him and I'm done with it. I'm done with the situation. I think I said that last week or a week ago. I'm just done. I'm done with LeGarrette Blount. I'm just not even. I don't even want to consider him for my team. Like I don't want to say that at all because I would take him if he's like my fourth or fifth maybe, and there's not much around, but. I'm not going to want that. So
yeah.
I'm just I'm down on him.
I get that.
Staying away.
Yeah, don't know what to expect.
Yeah. And I don't think we'll learn much in preseason on LeGarrette Blount because I can't see him playing much in the preseason. So I don't think we'll see much. All right, who's your second guy?
My second, and this guy I'm not completely off of. I'm not giving up on this guy, but I had to move him down my rankings because he had some bad publicity, and it hasn't really gotten any better, and some guys jumped over him, and that would be Carlos Hyde.
Yep.
So he was, I think, like 13th, something like that for me.
You had him 12th in our initial ranks. Yeah.
So I still love his talent. I like the guy, but I can't just not listen to all things talking about how he has to win his spot, and he has to, they don't like him perfectly for the fit and the scheme, and on top of that, he already had injury concerns. So, different guys have jumped over him. I mean, they were guys that were neck and neck anyway. So we're talking about Crowell,
Lynch, those kind of guys.
Yeah, so those two for sure, and then obviously, so he's moving back a few. He just comes with more risk.
Here's my thing always about like off-season news about players is you hear all this good news about people all the time. That kind of stuff I just don't listen to as much. I really feel though the bad news you hear, there's a little more to it. Why is there bad news out there? Why, like, that's for that kind of stuff to get out there to be negative, there has to be something more going on. Yeah, you can say great things about players all the time, doesn't mean they'll actually do anything. When there's negative stuff coming out, I feel like there's a little more to it. And I still think Hyde's a great player. I think he's better than Joe Williams, who's coming in there, Tim Hightower.
Oh, yeah.
He's better than those guys. But it feels like there's something about him that Kyle Shanahan doesn't like. I think, and maybe this is the whole thing of this negative news coming out. It's Shanahan trying to get to Hyde, get in his head somehow, get him to.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's trying to light a fire.
I think that's what this might be. But obviously, even with that, there's something there where there's something not right about the situation.
That's why I didn't pay attention to it too much the first time around, because you look at that roster.
There's nothing
and
else.
You're like, Hyde is by far the most talented offensive player you have.
Yep.
And when he's healthy, he's one heck of a running back. So I was wondering maybe he's just trying to do that. He's playing the little head games. He's doing this and that, knowing that he's going to have to tote a lot of carries for them to be competitive in any game.
Yep.
But, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I'm just backing off, a few players. And if it doesn't get any better, I'll probably back off even further.
Yeah, I say when it comes down to it, and there's similar guys now, you don't want to pick him ahead of them.
Exactly.
Well, that means he could end up being more of a steal if it all works out.
I know.
I kind of like that too in a way.
It'll be the first year he plays every game, and he gets 20 carries a game or something stupid.
All right, my next player is going to be a tight end. We haven't talked about tight ends on the list yet. It's Delanie Walker.
Really?
Yeah, he's dropped out of my top 10 tight end ranks. So he's really dropped for me. He's going to be, I think he's going to turn 33 this season. 33 years old. He's getting up there. Yeah, he'll be 32 before the season, or 33 before the season starts. He's only had, honestly, one breakout season. It was 2015 where his numbers spiked. Other than that, he's been a 60-catch, 800-yard guy, which is okay. But to me, that's every other guy. It's in that rank. It's Cameron Brate. It's Jack Doyle. He's those guys now. He's not. He shouldn't be above that. He's had one good year, one really, really good year. That's it.
What was his really, really good year?
94 catches for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. Other than that, he's never had more than 65 catches in a season. He's never had more than 890 yards receiving, other than that one season. That's it. He had one breakout year, and he's up there in age now.
Yeah, I get your.
And they have Corey Davis to throw the ball to now. They have Eric Decker to throw the ball to now. Rashard Matthews is still there. They have the running game that's still working.
It's true.
I just think there's two new pass catchers to throw the ball to out there. They drafted a tight end, Jonnu Smith, I believe his name is.
Yeah.
But they drafted. I'm not worried about him yet, but they still drafted a tight end. I still think he's a fine option, but he's dropped below other guys now.
I got you.
He's dropped below. For me, he's dropped below Hunter Henry, who was behind him. And I think you had him. I think you had Hunter Henry ranked below Walker. So I believe you're going to have Henry above.
Yeah, that's true.
He was originally ahead of Ertz. Ertz has passed him for me. I think even Ebron's going to pass him for me. Martellus Bennett passed him. There's a bunch of guys to me that I would rather have than Delanie Walker because he's an okay, safe option, but I don't even think he's better than players deeper down the board. I really don't when I dig into his numbers.
Yeah.
He had that one year that he spiked, and other than that, he's just been a boring tight end. Honestly, it's not.
Yeah, I can get behind that one.
His current rank is 7th if you go consensus. The player's right below him in consensus. There's Kyle Rudolph. If someone wants to take Walker over Rudolph, sure, I'm fine with that, but I'm taking Rudolph. Martellus Bennett, I'm taking Bennett. Ertz, I'm taking Ertz. I'm taking Henry, I'm taking Ebron. I'm taking all those guys. That puts Walker about 12th for me right now. That's where I'd put him.
Wow. So, yeah, he's fallen.
Think about that.
Significantly.
Think about that. Okay, I don't know. How do you feel on Kyle Rudolph over you?
I would take Walker.
Okay,
over
I figured
Rudolph.
that one. Okay, Bennett still taking Walker.
That one is that's iffy, but yeah, I'd probably take Walker. I'd probably go safe.
Okay, Hunter Henry.
No, I'd take Hunter Henry. You know that.
Zach Ertz.
That might be a little bit of a toss-up. Ertz is still, as much as you love him, he still has to prove quite a bit. So I worry about that aspect. I think Walker would be the safe option. I think Ertz if I'm willing to take the risk.
Yeah, I can see that, but I just like the.
So if I had, I'll just say Walker. So if I had to decide right now.
So at the very best, he's 8th for you now. At the best, which.
So he's fallen for me too.
Yeah, I mean 8th right there, and it's just. Ertz had better numbers last year. A lot more. Ertz had 13 more catches last year than Walker had already, and didn't even break out yet. Yards were similar.
Pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah.
How many? What was Walker's stats last year?
65 catches for 800 yards.
How many?
7 touchdowns.
So
he had the 7 touchdowns. Ertz went 78 for 816, so only 16 more yards. He had more catches. He had 3 less touchdowns. So he wasn't getting that yet, but that's at the very least, that's the level he's at now. He's not.
That's true.
He's not with Jimmy Graham and Eifert to me and those guys.
Yeah, actually, no, that's a good one. I like that because a lot of those guys that go in the middle that you rank are mostly it's the safety net of it because they've done it for so many years. And 800 yards for a tight end is pretty good because it wasn't like he was ranked in the top 4 even.
No, and it's just I think with tight ends, I think you have to get the top people just kind of like, I'll plug in Delanie Walker here.
Right.
That's where I think it's coming to be, and I think there's better options down there with tight end because tight end's a spot that I will gladly go for upside at tight end.
Yeah.
Out of all positions, I will just take a chance on upside.
No, I'll give you that.
Because Ebron, I want
Ertz and
Ebron.
Hunter Henry for sure.
I mean, you're probably
Ebron
not.
is probably actually. I might take Ebron too.
I can see how when you're doing the ranks, you think, okay, Walker should be ahead of Ebron in the rankings. Like that's legitimate. But when you're actually drafting, you're like, that upside of Ebron is so much better than Walker. Even though Walker probably has a better chance of a better season, Ebron could easily jump up.
Right.
Like it makes you think.
He could give you an advantage in the week instead of just staying neck
and especially at tight end where if you miss, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
It's not a huge deal. When you're already not getting the top guys, if you're worrying about this, you're not getting Gronk and Kelsey and Reed.
Yeah.
And Olsen even.
Jimmy.
And Graham. And you're probably not getting those guys. You're already down below. Mm-hmm. So I think you kind of want to take more of the upside.
Yeah, no, I'm with you actually. I'm with you. You talked me into that one.
All right, last guy.
Everyone's gonna hate me for this. I was already down on him, but I'm even farther down on him now, and that's Sammy Watkins.
Yep.
Once again, nothing to do with talent, but the guy scares me far too much, and I think on consensus right now he's 16th, and
has he moved up that far?
Well, yeah, he hasn't moved in a little bit, but yeah, so he moved up.
That's too much.
Yeah, and you're having. I'll name the guys. You have Terrell Pryor that's underneath him, Keenan Allen that's underneath him, Alshon Jeffrey, Devontae Adams, even Crabtree, Jarvis Landry. I just think that Sammy Watkins is going way too high for the amount of risk that you're taking for him. There's no possible way I would ever draft him as a wide receiver 2 on my team because I realize that wide receiver is deep, but that second guy is still very, very important. So that's why I'm even farther down on him now because after looking at how deep wide receiver is and how many guys I like that are right below him still, that are kind of moving up my board, if you will, especially like Terrell Pryor, I love him even more. Keenan Allen, I'm still high on. I would move Sammy Watkins down even further, and he's one of the few guys that I penalize for the injury concerns.
Yeah, me too.
But I feel like he's one of them that I absolutely have to.
Yeah, and I ranked Watkins 20th originally. I think I kept him around there. But the problem I'm having, if I'm in a mock draft and Watkins is on the board and there's somebody else like that, I feel like I draft Watkins. There's two. He has so much more potential there, and he has top 5 talent. But there is so many. The injuries have piled up.
Yeah,
and foot injuries for a receiver. It's a tough thing. So I find myself not drafting him, and I'm not putting him down. I'm not moving him down for where I have him right now. But it's one of them where when I'm in a draft, I got to think about it. And in an auction, this is how I'm thinking about this too. In an auction draft, Sammy Watkins comes on the board. You're probably not even thinking about it, are you?
No, I mean, there's no possible way that I'm outbidding anyone for him.
You're going to think about it if it's like at $10 in an auction.
Yeah.
Maybe 15 at the most.
And hopefully he comes later on where you know how much money you have. Yep. And I'm like, yeah, I can throw 15, even if it was 15 and I was like, because I haven't spent it, like I have this much for my bench.
Yep.
Maybe then
that's different.
But I'm not. If he comes early in the draft, no way I'm saving that money.
I can see that I can feel that one happening. Like he comes up here, I'm just going to wait. I just sit back and wait for this one to just kind of see if once it goes up at a certain point.
Yeah, I'm waiting for someone to spend their draft dollars on a guy that I think is going to get injured at some point and not be near as helpful to him. Yep. And I'm going to pay less for a Terrell Pryor. I mean, that's probably not going to happen now, but if it went by the rankings, that's what would happen.
I guess that's a good way to think about it. It's not. There's no analysis there. It's just if he comes on the draft board in an auction and you don't want to, you don't like what? I'm not even thinking about it, and you don't want that guy.
Yeah, it's just some things don't have anything to do with the player's talent. It's just. It's just where they are, what has happened to them in the past, and I have to build my team a certain way that I have to have some sort of security built in, and he's just too high where there could be a huge gap in where I believe I'm getting my points from.
Yep. All right, one final guy from me. I don't feel like you're going to agree with this.
Okay.
It's Phillip Rivers.
All right.
And it's not necessarily about Rivers himself and not maybe 100% the situation. A little bit. Mike Williams, I'm kind of down on where he's going to be. I think I was...
he did get hurt already.
Yeah, when he first came in thinking this is really going to boost us off as a top 10 pick. I'm not sure he's going to be there this year. Like, he's going to... I don't think he's going to be enough of a boost yet. I still don't know what to think about Keenan Allen and what kind of player he's going to be. I like Keenan Allen. He's actually dropped in my ranks too. He could have very easily been a player on this list. He hasn't gone far down, but he's gone down a little bit. Mm-hmm. More to like 14, 15 instead of 11, 12. Not far, but he's gone somewhere. I think all of that is just kind of made him drop a little bit. And it's more of there's other guys past him. It's not like he dropped. I had to find a spot. Just other guys I kind of liked a little better.
Right.
I think originally I had Jameis below him. Jameis jumped him. That's one. Mariota jumped him for me.
Okay.
Cousins jumped him for me. So right there's already three guys that just jumped him right off the bat for me. And then also right now I'm kind of looking at Stafford over him now too. That's where I'm at. But that's where he's at now for me though. He's still I think ahead of Stafford in the ranks, but that's where he's at instead of being more. He was up there a little bit further. He's dropped more to the Stafford level for me now, which I'm still fine with that. And there's still good options. I'm okay with those options. I just think Winston, Mariota, Cousins, those kind of guys all should have been ahead of him. So I just adjusted that way. He's kind of gone down there. And I'm not as excited about the receiving group as I was. I still think it's going to be good. I'm just not as big on it as I was. That's maybe where I'm just cooled a little bit on it.
I don't necessarily mind that. I mean, last year, him and Stafford were 7 and 8. And they were only like 3 points away from each other. Stafford was actually ahead of him. So... And then Mariota and Jameis, I both think they're going to make jumps. How big of jumps, I don't know. Yep. I just think Rivers had, I think he had a little more of a light year when it came to TDs and yardage compared to what he can do now.
Yep.
But I don't mind that. I mean, once you get to that point, there's a lot of guys that are very close. And my love for Phillip Rivers really came from the fact that even if he was below a couple of guys, it just meant that I think people are undervaluing him. That's where my love came from.
Well, and it's not like I'm really that far down on it. Maybe I don't think he's going to be quite as good, but I'm still okay with that option. I like that option. There's nothing wrong with it.
Dropping below those guys, though, that's completely fine.
If you're looking at a 10-team league, I don't know if I want him to be my starter now. I think there's other guys a little more upside, but if that's the thing, though, I don't usually like to get two quarterbacks, but if I'm getting a back-end quarterback one, like a 9th or 10th ranked guy, that's when I like to shore it up maybe with the Rivers, with the Stafford. Right. That's where I get to. If I get one of the top-end guys, I don't even worry about a backup. But still, Rivers is still a good option. I'd be fine with it. It's just not as – just a little cooled on him. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think the big thing with quarterback is the more it shake out, the more you look at the different stats, you see that if you don't get one of the top 4 guys that can really – that are not only consistent but can put up a large amount of points compared to everyone else – after that, there is a bevy of guys that probably like 10 guys that it wouldn't matter if you had them or not.
Yep.
So that's very true.
Yep. All right, I think that's it for trending up, trending down. So starting next week, I think we're gonna start our rankings, and that's what we're gonna do for about the next 4 weeks. And we're gonna have our mini episodes in between, as we always do, with different player debates, different topics like the Zeke thing that came up. If something comes up, maybe even an injury, so there'll be different random mini episodes that come up, but our main episodes are gonna be ranks. Next week's gonna be all quarterback ranks. I think we'll do 1 through 15, kind of go maybe a little more in depth on every player, and then that'll be next Tuesday. Next Friday we'll go 16 and beyond.
Yeah. Yes, time to
16 and beyond. We'll talk about we'll go deep for people that have 4 people that play in 2 quarterback leagues and really need to roster a third. Then,
right?
Like we might as well go into that, and then we'll go running backs. We'll go 50 deep at running back. We'll go 50 deep at wide receiver. We'll go 25 deep at tight end, and then we'll probably end it up with a super deep sleepers episode in about 4 weeks, where we talk about players that are way down the list, like really, really far down the list. But I kind of playing in the Scott Fishbowl League, that really actually made me interested in some of those guys. We ended up drafting Elijah Hood, which
yeah, I was like, who the heck did you just draft?
Maybe I'll talk about him in the super deep sleepers in about 4 weeks, and he might even be cut by then. We'll find out. But that was always an interesting episode too. But it's going to be all rankings coming up for the next about 4 weeks. Really get you ready for these drafts. Know where we think these players are going to be. Last time we did them, we kind of went 1-1. We just based our ranks, where we actually had them. I think we're gonna make our ranks, and then we're gonna combine them into our consensus ranks, so everyone gets a good idea of where we feel players should be. So I don't think Mike Evans is going to come in number 1 at receiver.
No,
he actually.
Well, not from consensus.
We're about 3 weeks away from our wide receiver rank episode, but I got to tell you something. He's number 5 for me.
How dare you? Number 5. Oh yeah. Well, I should have known that though, because you were arguing for Julio. So,
but no, I'll give you a sneak preview here of wide receivers. It goes Antonio Brown, Julio, Odell Beckham, AJ Green.
Oh, okay.
Mike Evans. So
that will not be my list, but it
might
those
change.
Guys are awesome.
It's 3 weeks away. There's a lot that can change. It's changing daily for me.
Yeah.
I change my ranks every single day. So.
But yeah, this is the time where I feel like this is a cutoff when you have to actually start doing a little research and figuring out who you're going to have, and people are figuring out keepers. So if you do have any questions about strategy, keepers, anything like that, send them to us. We'll try to help you out the best we can.
Yeah, and maybe one of our mini episodes we'll do like a mini mailbag.
Yeah.
If people have questions, just send them in. We won't do like an actual full mailbag episode. Maybe we will right before the season, but if you have questions, keep sending them in. We'll put them on the podcast. We'll respond to you probably before that's on the show, but then we'll put them on the show so everyone can hear it and get a good idea of the question. But just keep getting us questions. We'll get back to you, help you guys out if you have keeper questions. People have sent us on Instagram and stuff. They've sent us their mock drafts they've done or drafts they've done and want our feedback. Send them to us. Gladly give feedback on those. Tell you maybe where we think you might be able to improve. And had a few of them that come back that people seem to be taking our advice. So
yeah, so we better be right.
Yeah,
but this is where it gets fun. So this is cool, and everyone listening, we keep gaining subscribers and listeners. Man, we appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. So hopefully our advice is correct, and we'll continue winning.
I hope people do see like it's not all about the players all the time. There's players behind, but it's all about how you build your team and the strategy behind it. And
it's more about strategy. Don't
completely sell yourself on all these players. If make sure you have backup. Make sure you have different strategies. Make sure you don't. I don't know. There's just all kinds of things to do. Just keep listening. And I mean, shoot, we both had situations where we've had top guys go down. You had Keenan Allen go down last year for you right away.
And I'm still high on him. So
I had Adrian Peterson go down for me last year. I had Jamal Charles the year before. I still made it to the playoffs both years. Like, your season's not done if you lose a top guy.
No,
that's
not
why
at all.
Keep listening to. Then we'll have waiver episodes and find these waiver wire guys. Maybe Elijah Hood's one of them.
Could be.
We'll if he is, and you heard it here first, hey, you heard it here first. So that's where we're gonna go. We will talk to you guys next week.